Hello, this is Michaela Campos, and this is my final presentation for Internship 2. Um, I finished this on July 21st of this year. So I did my internship at Grand Mental Health Center. I spent a lot of my time in the prior location, and their mission is that they are committed to creating a welcoming, supportive, and positive environment in which an array of effective and efficient trauma-informed integrated services will promote an improved quality of life for consumers, communities, and each other in northeastern and north central Oklahoma. I added pictures of the prior location. Claremore is where I spent the rest of my internship when I was not at Pryor. I did add the history on this page because it is kind of interesting. Grand Mental Health began in 1977 due to a group of people from Gateway Economic Development Association of Veneta, Oklahoma. This group of people used federal funding to begin a community mental health service for northeastern Oklahoma. The funding was only possible due to President John F. Kennedy signing the Community Mental Health Center Act of 1963, which allowed federal funds to become available to states to develop community-based mental health services. Before it was Grand Mental Health, it was named Northeast Oklahoma Human Development Services, which is a bit of a mouthful, and later in 1984 was named Grand Lake Mental Health Center. It was only in March of this year that the name changed to Grand Mental Health due to the fact that they are expanding to areas outside of the Grand Lake area. And that's their new logo that I added, and they have it out in front in Claremore. The population that Grand Mental Health serves is quite a diverse one, all age groups, from children up to the elderly, and there is no discrimination between clients no matter the age, clearly, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, gender identification, or anything of the such. So why did I choose Grand Mental Health? There are many reasons that I could list as to why I chose Grand Mental Health for my internship, but it really boils down to the first experience I had with them in Internship 1. The environment surrounding the facility as a whole is non-hostile, and everyone is willing to help out when there is a question. Due to the previous internship time there, I was able to get started rather quickly and get more in-depth than the first go-around. I had already built up rapport with many of the people at Grand Mental Health, and this allowed to get more hands-on experience as well as make connections with other employees for the future. Overall, Grand Mental Health has been a wonderful experience and allowed an inside look at what could possibly become a future career. The internship position that I held at Grand Mental Health is intern. The supervisor was Allie Craig. She was is the internship and practicum coordinator. The work environment was great.
What?
For someone who has worked from home most of my job career, I believe that this was a fantastic introduction to being on site. The people that I shadowed were all extremely helpful when it came to any questions that I had, as well as over-explaining concepts that may be a bit difficult to understand. We spent most of the time at the office due to the school being out. However, we did take a trip to the zoo, the park, and spent a couple days driving to clients' houses to bring them resources or just for a routine check-in. I will also mention that Miss Allie Craig was phenomenal as well. She was able to work around any commitments that I had made before the beginning of the semester, while also getting in my hours quickly. The day in the life of a Grand Mental Health intern. To start the day, typically around 8 or 9, depending on who I was shadowing, I would sit and take notes over the different clients and things to kind of expect for the day. I never wrote any identifiable information nor anything that could be traced back to any client. Most of the notes consisted of one words or short phrases such as park or doesn't like dot dot dot. After this, we would begin to see clients and go over how they are feeling, talking about coping skills and physical wellness. After this, we would play a game that would have the children. I was with children 4 plus for the most part. Things about their feelings or learning different ways to take care of themselves. There was never time to take off for lunch, and it was typically a 5-minute snack in between clients. At the end of the day, plans would be made for the next day as well as going over what happened throughout the day. Some of the goals that I had, and the activities that I did to reach these goals. Number one was to become familiar with everyday tasks of different positions. I did this by talking to the staff that is present and observing what they do in situations. Better my skills when it comes to discussing difficult topics. This one was observation and asking questions. I did get to sit in on a kind of group therapy thing, and I believe that was great. Observation to be able to experience that. How to divert hostile conversations to more pleasant ones. This one again, observation and asking questions and utilizing online resources. We also had a client at one point who was not very happy. We'll put it that way. And so I got to see a bit of like diffusing techniques and stuff like that. Number 4, become familiar in different treatment plans. This was looking through pamphlets and reading more online. This was typically just the Grand Mental Health website. Number 5 was better my communication without tracing rabbit trails. This is practice and observation while asking questions when needed, but obviously practice is going to be my best bet. Challenges that I faced while at Grand Mental Health. Success found in observation and a few tears. There are quite a few other challenges that I faced during this internship. However, these were the ones that stood out to me the most. I did get a lot of time, though, getting to learn how to handle these situations. To start off, new situations and crying kids. I'm already an extremely awkward person, and getting used to a new environment can be a bit of a challenge, especially to gather my thoughts. Crying children seem to fall into this category, but I feel like it also falls into one of its own, since it is also something that triggers my fight or flight, which neither tend to be an option when there is a crying kid that you're trying to console. I've mentioned it before. I'm going to have to mention it again. The billing system at Grand Mental Health is something that haunts my nightmares. I'm extremely grateful that I did not have to learn it in depth, or I would have spent a majority of the internship learning the system, which would not have been very fun. And finally, just personal issues that I have. My back is an issue that I did not see causing a challenge. However, being on your feet or in awkward positions to get to the children's level does a number on one's spine, especially one that is already has arthritis and is degenerating. Yeah, that up and down was not good. Viaje de mis strengths. It means journey of my strengths, but I thought it was kind of funny with VIA. And disc, covering my strengths. Again, disc. As we can see here, humor is something that I top of my list here. Honesty and fairness coming up close second. There's different forms of communication across multiple age groups. Was a skill that I did not have going into this internship. In most of my previous jobs, I spoke with adults and very rarely with children. I have never been good with children despite having a younger brother. There seems to be not much practice in that field. Through this internship, I was forced to learn to communicate with children in a way that they understand. It is a skill that I'm happy that I was able to develop. Previous experience that helped a lot was my time as a waitress. It was during this time that I learned how to keep clients semi-happy as well as how to deal with the unhappy ones. find humor in tough situations, and treat others with a fairness that I would hope to be returned. Communication skills were also learned here that helped me get my start in many other jobs that I've held in the past, but also in getting comfortable at Grand as well as learning to trust others to get their job done. This kind of comes from the disc with my personality type or style being finisher, which I put down here in the little icons. My accomplishments. These aren't really big accomplishments on certain scales, but communication. I always list this one as a strength of mine, and I believe that it is. However, when it comes to speaking with those in authority or in higher positions than me, I can get nervous and cannot articulate what I want to say at times. Through this internship, I was able to overcome this anxiety and make some connections with the other people. Overcoming adversity. There were many challenges that came throughout this internship, between having a tire blowout and my grandfather in the hospital and everything imaginable in between. It seemed impossible to make it some days. I also always made it, though it may not be much of an accomplishment for some, but for me it was a pretty big one. Takeaways. I had three main takeaways for this whole thing, and stay calm being number one. Kind of obvious, but again, it can be hard to remember that sometimes the best thing to do in a situation is to just take a step back and breathe. It will not only calm you down, but the entire situation. It can give a new perspective on how to handle what is going on as well. Number two is to make sure you watch your time. With children, especially with that being our main group, you may have to send them out to meet their parents, and you don't want to worry them or make them wait too long. They have jobs, you know. And again, billing. The devil himself. Or herself. I don't know. We don't judge. Yeah, it's important to know your times, and that's something that you're going to have to discuss with your coworkers, especially like with the little teams they have in prior. Yeah. Make sure you know your time. And number three, that it is okay to ask others for advice. You are never going to have all the answers ever, and reaching out to your coworkers is fine. There are ways to discuss subjects without violating people's confidentiality rules, which is always my main concern, but then we'll see what happens in the future with these little takeaways. And finally, some advice for the future. Do not procrastinate and ask questions. Get your internship site figured out as soon as you possibly can. I am a professional procrastinator and can confirm that procrastinating getting an internship site is the absolute worst thing that you can do. This is something that will save you so much time and stress in the future. A lot of the assignments are directed towards how many hours that you have on site already. The earlier that you get the internship, the sooner you complete those hours, on top of having first pick of the hours, because you get there before everybody else. And finally, kind of obvious, but ask questions while you're there, even if you think they're the stupidest thing ever. It is better to get clarification early than wait and mess up later, or end up in a situation where having the answer could be vital. Also, these people know you're going to be asking questions, so they're willing to answer. No judgment. So, yeah, have fun.